Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you all for being here. I hope you're staying safe and cool or warm wherever you may be joining us from this May evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. I am Ricardo Hernandez, Assistant Director of Programs and Partnerships here at Poets and Writers, and your host for the evening. Before we launch into the main event, a reading from the 10 talented writers who comprise this year's Get the Word Out Poetry Fellows, I wanted to share a few words about poets and writers and how we arrived at tonight's event. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar, Poets and Writers, established in 1970, is the largest nonprofit serving creative writers in the country. Each year, tens of thousands of poets, fiction writers, and creative nonfiction writers benefit from our programs, which include our eponymous magazine, our information-rich website, pw.org, financial support for readings and other literary events, our online classes and workshops, and sponsorship of several notable writing prizes and awards. In 2022, we added to our programming with the launch of Get the Word Out, a publicity incubator for early career authors. Building on poets and writers' work, Get the Word Out was designed to help writers develop publicity strategies to maximize the exposure of their soon-to-be published books, reach readers, and create a platform to propel their literary careers. Since its launch, the program has brought together over 60 fellows representing more than 20 small and independent presses. So over the last 12 weeks, the 10 writers you'll be hearing from this evening conferred each week to strategize publicity for their forthcoming books. They learned from visiting publishing and media professionals. Oh, excuse me. From media professionals, and they reflected on their publishing journeys, all under the mentorship of Carla Bruce. So here to help us kick off tonight's readings, it's now my pleasure to bring to the virtual stage Carla Bruce. Carla Bruce is a book publicist with Lavender Public Relations, a birth doula, and a writer. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times, New York Magazine, Guernica, and Real Simple, among others. Carla is a contributor to Ebony Liddell's YA anthology, You've Got a Place Here Too, and to the well-read Black girl anthology, Finding Our Secrets, Discovering Ourselves. A former middle and high school teacher, Carla is a board member of Baldwin for the Arts and a Read Ahead mentor. She is based in Los Angeles. Take it away, Carla.
Hey everyone, thank you so much, Ricardo. And I want to thank everyone for coming tonight and celebrating these amazing and incredible writers. I want to thank Poets and Writers for asking me to be a part of this program because these past 12 weeks have been such a beautifully generative and helpful time. Whatever publicity knowledge and experiences I've gained throughout my career have absolutely been eclipsed by what I've learned from these poets, which is as it should be. I also want to extend my gratitude to the wonderful guest presenters who joined us to offer their career journeys and expertise. This kind of generosity is invaluable, especially in an industry that can so often feel confusing and overwhelming. So thank you. I'm a deep believer in the transformative and life-giving power of the arts, and of literature especially. And in such a fractious and fractured time in human history, the calling to look beyond this ignorant present, tap into our ancestral legacies, and chart a more imaginative, expansive, and loving way into an unknown future is what we should be going into. Human art, crafted by human hearts and hands. I'm so excited for you to hear a bit of that tonight, and I trust that you will be as touched and inspired as I have been. So without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our first poet, Alfredo. Alfredo Aguilar lives, reads, and writes in Austin, Texas. His hometown's dubious claim to fame is being the self-dubbed avocado capital of the world. The floor is yours, Alfredo.
Thank you so much, Carla. So I'm going to read a poem from my forthcoming collection, Minor County, should be due out next spring. Really excited to hear everyone else. LA Koreatown, 2016. I came to visit months after your move, then slept on the floor of your apartment beside a stack of books. In the morning, I was up early, made coffee as quietly as I could. Windows stood open, letting in a warm breeze. It was summer. Sunlight poured in from everywhere. Across the street, someone was practicing the trumpet. Silvery notes sailed in and invited me to tap my feet. Later, we sat on the fire escape looking out into the city, the bright sky, talking about what I can't recall. It feels less and less like that matters now. What I remember is how we confided in each other. At an intersection on our way to a reading, at the far end of a boulevard stood the only mountain I'd seen since arriving to the city. At once, I felt unmoored, as though I'd been adrift for weeks without any marker that could tell me where I was on this earth or in this life, and I wept. Here was the sound our solitude made as we linked arms with one another. Windows opening, tenderness, laughter. Here was the stage where we offered our words to a room full of strangers. We reached toward an audience wishing for many things, though at the time we would have been reluctant to admit it. Acclaim, approval, perhaps just to feel, if only for a moment, less alone. The audience applauded, and even now it isn't always clear to me whether they applauded our art or our sorrow. We were certain we knew what a poem was. We were that young. It is my pleasure to introduce our next reader, Mansi. Mansi Dahal is a writer from Nepal, currently based in New York. Her debut poetry collection, winning Marigold, is forthcoming from Stillhouse Press in 2026.
Thank you, Alfredo. Um, I will be reading poems today from my debut book, like what Alfredo just said, Women in Marigold, that's coming out from Stillhouse Press this September. My first poem is called Dear America. Dear America, I have the urge to start a poem with Dear Mansi, but I don't know how to offer tenderness to myself. But to you, I offer all of my dearness, my sack full of dreams, my eyes, my skin, my memory. So even though I will never feel complete in this country, I hope my writing will. Dear America, this morning Nepal is declared the happiest country in South Asia. So when they ask me what is the population of Nepal, I tell them we're all happy there. When they ask me where my hometown is located, I tell them we're all happy there. When they ask me why do people leave Nepal, I tell them we're all happy there. When they ask me why do I write poems, I tell them sometimes somebody else's hurt hurts me more than my own hurt. Dear America, my grandfather often says that I left for America in a jet plane. For him, all airplanes do is take his grandchildren to a far, far land. And when the yellow makai is fried in the black korai with Q, he blames the airplanes for not being able to feed his grandkids their favorite food. Dear America, do you have time for my grandfather's stories? Dear America, when my 11-year-old sister sees me apply pink lipstick in a video call, she says, Ew, you are a soft girl. And I think about that the whole day. In the train, I notice my pink sandals. In the cafe, my pink mixed berries iced tea. In the mirror, my pink velvety t-shirt. So the next day, I ask her, Kaya, what's the opposite of a soft girl? And she says, electronic girl. And to be that, I need to wear black to lick and breathe grunge. But even if I do that, my wounds will always be fresh pink because I poke them right before they dry. My voice trembles, and Amma reminds me, you are the tigress. Yes, Amma, a soft tigress, soft like algae formed next to the river in America. Where are you going? Dear America, here I am, growing old, waiting for my first spring. Dear America, there was once a girl who took one train to go to Kathak classes or cafes to write, to become a writer, to forget her lover. One day she left, but the city kept growing. Tell me, America, will you remember her? My next poem is called Poem. Every time I read a poem and it's not about Dashai, barley seeds begin to sprout in my gut. Lemon green. What makes a heart angry? Swollen veins stretch in Ama's thighs. The heel of her palms push the sticky dough into raspberry. Feeding a goat wheat bran before slaughter is common during Dashai, but I don't miss blood or men flying kites. Don't tell the god of rain to stop pouring. The rice fields do not need more water. But I do not want this to be a poem. I want this to be angry. So let me start again. Every time I read a poem and it's about the sliced green branches of the tall bamboo swings tightened over and over with the prickly jute roots, the holy water in the kalash dries. Pages of the calendar flip backwards. It's 2015. October 22nd is circled in red. I don't know what it's like to be abroad and not find a poem about Dashain. One where the ting-ting of brass bells, the smell of sandalwood, the vapor rising from milk that Ama's watching. Abu's on the sofa waiting for his chia. But this anger is not about chia. I've shown enough of that. This is about the absence of a poem. There is no metaphor here, no simile, no paradox, because I don't have time for that. I just want a poem about a girl missing home during Dashain, and the poem needs to be written now. I'm reading a poem, and it's about Dashain. My next poem is called Permit Yourself Anger. There's a village in Nepal where kids carry firewood to classes. Under their backpacks, they wedge sticks because Madam has said, you are present only if your firewood is present. So every night they scatter behind houses, across millet fields, into rusted buffalo sheds, under tin roofs, searching for a splinter of presence. I could think about that whole evening, all night, and the next day too. Nepalis watching Nepali politics on widescreen TVs in Ohio, in Virginia next to paintings of Mount Everest in golden frames. They won't go back to Nepal, but they want Nepal to shift into a shape they might return to. The possibilities make me weak in my knuckles. Home or ambition for it, love or just looking lovely, staying or staying longer. Sujani told me today that America has no soul, just a system, a grave with Wi Fi, a door that opens to no breaths. Nepal has one, Nepalis a ton. My Hadurama's soul can hold so much sadness, she can turn blue like Shivaji after swallowing the snake's poison. My last poem is called Are All the Heartbreaks in Your Poems Real? They are as real as the mayflies who don't have mouths but live 100 years within a day. Under the green shaded sky, they mate and hide inside the black tote bags, recklessly moving around to seize the only day they have. If human beings only had a day, I would claim all my heartbreaks to have been made up. In Central Park, I yell about my 24th single year of life, and I hate that February. A friend reminds me I have my entire life ahead of me. But people don't look at time in front of them. They look back, and when I do not mind the argument in the elevator. He was affecting me as I was letting him. One winter, I believe the peaches will turn purple and my tongue will stop distracting me. I will enjoy their buttery texture and learn how to say, we should end this. I will end this. I am ending this. That winter, all my lost earrings will be found, and I will call Abu and tell him, sorry, Abu. When I was 20, we walked through an aisle of books, and pointing at one, he had said, write about anything, but don't write about boys who break your heart. And here I am, making people believe in my heartbreaks. But if given, I would want to make them believe in love too. Um, After me is reading Ayla. Ajla Dizdarević has worked as an editor and educator in the United States and Europe. Along with poetry, she loves hamsters and bunnies.
Hello. Thank you, Mansi. I'll just be reading a few poems from my book that'll come out in February 2027 with Carnegie Mellon University Press. It's going to be called What I Learned About Dogs in the Village. So this first poem I'll read is called War. If it comes as promised, as painless as the plucking of a tiny tooth, then I'll sink in the bath, pop bubbles with my toenails, and drink until I sparkle like the wine surviving at the bottom of my glass. If it comes any other way, then I'll take my thumb, the harsh knuckle of it hard as stone, and drag it across the newspapers, smudging dates to prove it is not yet here, has not yet found me. It could have arrived yesterday while I was out of town, or will strike its fist on my door tomorrow when I'm deaf with fever, or will take its shoes off in another country where I have no slippers to offer even my most unwelcome guest. It could sit as a bayonet posed above the hearth of a family's home, or as dentures in a rotting mouth stuck shut by the grit of prayer. My own mouth, dry with zenith, how little comes from salivation. And the next poem I'll read is called Dizdar, and there's an epigraph from a poem called We Shall Say to God. by Vahan Tekayan. So I'll read that paragraph first. When we find God in his paradise, offering comfort to make amends for our pain, let us swear that we will refuse, saying, no, send us to hell again. We choose hell. You made us know it. Keep your paradise for the Turk. And then this is my poem. No watchdog wants to write poetry praising the collar wrapped around its neck. Any beast worth its snarl will snap at sultans, break its tooth off in turban skulls. Can you blame me when I tell you I want to strip myself of flesh, use my fingers as clothespins to hang the skin of my forearms away from me? My name, a lineage lashed, a script I circle like a hound roots through foliage, seeking the scent of what has been lost. And this loss, how to render it a metaphor that makes you understand. Perhaps like this. Once I tried a Turkish delight. It coiled in my mouth like a snake, as bitter as what scraped from the bottom of a jezva, burning this lesson into me. The locus of pain is in the tongue, not the heart. You won't catch me writing about an organ that pulses blood, proving a Turk was here. At least my tongue can learn the language of chestnuts, spit out the husk of what conquered it. Yes, I'm a dog gone mad by the memory of the chicken it couldn't crush between its teeth. I'm the rooster plucked clean of its feathers, the fish with salted gills, the fortress whose damp walls stifle the echo of Dizdars guarding what little remains. Castellanian in nature, I crack this name between my teeth, harder than a chestnut that failed to reach open flame. Third poem I'll read is named after my dad, actually, who was in the Bosnian War, Dizdarević Mehmet Suleiman. My father, who wears the Bosnian War as lines on his forehead, who carries the sweet memory of his country as a cannula injects insulin under his skin, each pump like a bullet that maims with the wounding reminder of having survived when others did not, was once a boy thieving from his grandfather's medicine cabinet, wrapping bandages around hairless legs of cousins theatrically prostrate on the ground, posing as wounded partisans he would nurse to health before sending them on their way through the woods, where in 10 years' time he would hold the split head of his cousin, skull shattered in two by a bounding mine, palms wet with the brain he tried to place back in the head of someone he loved, my father, who killed for his country when he wanted more than anything to be a doctor and never touch a gun, laid in a makeshift hospital in Bosnia, looking down to see his body blackened by frost, hearing from a nurse how the cold had almost taken his legs and ability to have children. My father, who was 56 years old and wrinkled enough to be mistaken for a man 20 years his senior, is riddled with a war that has fallen out of fashion and favor, his wounds festering into the aching cot and cradle of my poems, and as small as they are, as ugly as they can be, as useless as it seems to write songs in the echo of all that has happened. Each line sutured shut, just slightly, almost imperceptibly, almost not at all, this wound of living. And then the last poem I'll read is actually the last poem in my forthcoming book. It's called Ars Poetica. At first, I fashioned myself to be a Tsveteva type, damp at the forehead as I noted on the page, right, and then as if you are the first, and then as if you are the last. Stratagems unfamiliar to me scraped into paper like a dentist scrapes an insolent tooth of its debris. I threw my draft into an unkempt drawer next to creased essays on failed poets, on winning poets, on hermaphrodisiac lines dripping from the lip of writers like Gippius. Letters between lovers from decades ago took root in my mind, sullying my idea of affairs and how to have one. I brought lovers' bones to the acts of artistry instead of my bed, took their calcium dust as sweetener in my morning tea, and realized I am not the child of noblemen or professors. I do not descend from a line of spindle-fingered pianists, was not raised by those who wrote legions into literature, built castles from pumice stones. The greats, they were too great, gilded childhoods of perfectly torturous exiles, and their foreignness, so universal in its oddness, was stiff to me after years of study. The greats, they outdid me. What else to do but undo the green of my arms and dive in the muck of what spilled forth? From this capillaristic ink I wrote of my factory father, kittens hawked on sidewalks in Zemun, and how I stepped on paws of creatures right after sharing leftover meat pies with them. I wrote of who killed what at the Roman well, the nearby river's succulent glint in winter and its stink in summer months. Hitchcock's neck would melt at the thought of the people I saw, how their hands threw sewage into the Danube instead of carpal into rhyme. I swam in those waters only once at night when the lights were down and guards asleep. Snores parted their lips, how I parted current like a fish, blind to my fate of gliding into a bear's mouth. I lost nothing the evening I drowned in air. Pencil in my gills and verse in my belly, I hooked hungry onto the final line. Thank you. Thanks. I will now be introducing our next speaker, Ty Raso. Ty is a poet and teacher, author of Mirror Would Be a Beautiful Name for a Child, forthcoming from Noemi Press 2027. Ty is also an Aquarius, a river enthusiast, pickling hobbyist, former oleologist, also known as a sommelier for olive oil, and a lifelong amateur.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for making time for us tonight. So yeah, my collection, Mirror Would Be a Beautiful Name for a Child, October 2027. It begins with it like in the aftermath of a disappearance of the speaker's abuser. So the first one I'm going to read is actually the first poem I wrote for the manuscript, and I don't think I've ever actually read it to an audience before, because like the newer stuff always felt kind of shinier. And it's kind of co-written between like, myself in my adult voice and my younger self. It uses like lines taken directly from childhood journals. And it's called "And the church expelled my queer, and my father disappeared, and I started growing a light bulb in my chest," which was the year I spoke entirely in light. I fell in love with mirrors, but not myself. I loved how light could be a room, like a throat. I experimented with breathlessness, meaning I would hold my body in the bottom sleep of the bathtub until I felt a brightness in my fingers, toes, behind my eyes, my small mouth full of water, like a secret. I spoke to strangers on the internet in rooms where language crawled through the roof. I typed, "Have you ever seen the moon up close? Is there a such thing as forgiveness? Have you ever fallen in love?" Not really. We mostly talked about worlds other than ours, how bright in ink their skies must be, how their children eat stars for breakfast, the blue glow of the computer drawing my face as a lampshade, while the year grew up in a one-bedroom apartment, its walls freckled and blood yellow like mucus. In that way, it was a body. I loved to watch my mother perch on the tombstone part of the couch and smoke between the gray curtain and the window, the headlights pouring by, dotting her like a map. We lived by the railroad. Its sound was beautiful and shallow, like the world was ending. Every time I believed it. Yes, really. I fell in love with the sound, not because it was God, but because I could describe it. I wrote, "It sounds like fire with a trumpet. It sounds like the electricity of my body. It sounds like everything being reborn." Okay, so this next poem jumps forward really far in time. It's inspired by the sitcom The Other Two, if you've ever seen it. And it's called "Ty Gets a Boyfriend." Carrie Dubek's sort of cute with his lemur cheeks, his could cry at any time eyes. Many cruelties are born on the fingertips or tongue fingers of wound-lost people, like that one man fell in love with me in a grayscale city where the car sound was graphite on my apartment window, and as revenge, I fell in love with him, standing on bridges in his collared shirts. Carrie's conflict as a character is quite simple. He has a closet the size of a municipality between his shoulders. He wants to be famous because then others will accept him, unpin him from his grief. Got it? I, on the other hand, can fall in love with anyone. Just this morning, I fell in love with a tree that had fallen over another tree like a door. I even fall in love with Carrie on all fours begging a man method acting as a closeted virgin to fuck him. And that one man I fell in love with had a habit of crying when he touched me, so I would hold him and feel cruel about having a body. I went for a walk and saw a bird use his body as a bullet against another bird and was reminded of my father. father, Carrie has to write a screenplay and realizes the gay, mean dad, hard for me story has already been told like a cross, the dad-shaped hole in my clavicle whistling when I remember too quickly. That one man would look at my body out of the shower and say, "That's my pretty boy," and the cardinal in my chest would make a V with her wings. Um, so the book has a lot of persona poems, because when you grow up like trans or queer in general, you look for like representation a lot in media or around you, and you or I guess, end up like projecting a kind of queer being or like representational quality onto characters who are like not written to be queer, or at least not explicitly. But when the world kind of fails to give you mirrors. I feel like it's a natural process to make mirrors in the absence of mirrors. Um, so this poem is written in the voice of Pinocchio, which is inspired by a scene in Carlo Collodi's original um, text where Pinocchio defies the blue fairy. And in like contrary to the Disney retelling, like becoming a boy in the original narrative was like a threat or a punishment, not like what Pinocchio wanted. Um, so the poem is in Pinocchio's voice, and it's called Instead of becoming a boy, Pinocchio sneaks off with their friend Lampwick to Toyland. If I were made of wax, if I curl my fingers into your curled fingers like roots, if fire was a door in your throat, if in this orange chapter of morning, if boy, not yet, maybe never, if, and I don't know how to say this, if the birds searching my neck for food, if I wake up with a nest between my arms like a breath, if the spirals in my bark, if I can float on water like a reflection, if my body is a boat for yours, if boy creaks on my tongue like an intruder, if a house is made of what I'm made of. Um, okay, so one more poem. It's got like a similar logic to the last one. So yeah, thank you to Ricardo and poets and writers for making this possible, and thank you to Carla for everything, for your incredible guidance and generosity, and thank you to every guest speaker, and thank you to everyone here, and thank you to my cohort. Buy their books, follow them all on social media. I don't know, like stay connected. So this is the last poem. It's called Self-Portrait as that one scene from Pokemon, the first movie. You know the one where Pikachu slaps Pikachu in the face, both entirely flowering with tears, as one says Pikachu, arms thrown back like a wishbone, as the other says Pikachu, head heavy and lips parted. It's too easy to say that I am the Pikachu being struck, that I am the way they fall and roll like a wound and stand to say Pikachu, which means I am sorry you are capable of hurting me. It's too easy to say that I am the one doing the striking, that I am the static between them, or the sky above drawn by hand and unbeautiful, as a striker says Pika, the chew silent, to mean I have nothing left within my hands, the scene tattooed on the place where the crater of my childhood meets the bloom of my childhood's, which reminds me of how you can prevent your Pokemon from evolving, as the exit wound of light expands, the music harding like a drum, the text box reading what or huh, as if every transformation were the first, like how I, as a child, studying in the bathroom how many faces my face could make, how many meanings my body could have, as Destruct says chew, the Pika silent to mean there is nothing left beneath my hands on my mouse, my face flattened by the computer screen, as I cry, scrolling Google Images, having searched trans Pikachu, and yes, found her, a heart taped to her tail, which is not a metaphor, her mouth open, and the only word she knows is her word, the word she is, which means everything she means, her pink tongue, and her right paw pointing toward her tail, her left holding it in front of her, and my computer always with its soft murmur, that exhale of its labor, its warm body, which means nothing other than I am working, I am working, I am working, I am an object made to make other objects, which is not a metaphor, and the wall behind me is blued by the making, and through my window a thunderstorm reaches its hands to the ground like a metaphor, and, of course, the rain repeating the name of the sky. Okay, thank you. Um, and so it's my honor to introduce our next reader, Renée. So Renée is an interdisciplinary writer and memory worker who co-creates with ancestors and listens to her inner voice. She loves archives, lavender, local honey, mountain places, fuzzy socks, and long salt baths with scalding water. Thank you.
Les, that was beautiful, Ty. Thank you all so much for the gift of this gathering. I am going to share 3 shorties tonight. It is important that you know that I am a descendant of Black Mountain people, and so these are going to be poems representing those people. Farmer's Almanac by day, Bible by night, Algoma, West Virginia. We tend close, soil and soul, both promise a harvest if we listen and heed the word. So we won't plant on ember days, lest we be burnt. Numbers blossom in our dreams like nightshade, beckon to be picked, round ripe pleading peppers and ruby, juicy tomatoes. Come morning, we holler with jubilant thumbs for the runner. Bet a war nickel or penny. Pray for breakthrough. Yield to committees of angels and ancestors. Our archive of seeds, some saved, some bartered, others filched from Cole Boss's gardens, feed us while we check horoscopes for signs. Root crops, cabbage and lettuce, flourish in Taurus, string beans in Cancer, uproot weeds in Aries, let greens loan when we own our menses. Them days we sit with burrowed sorrow, a home for moles. Our unmarked stillborns sleep eternally under coal ash heaps, where trees of heaven still grow. Memory's canopy of seasons, a time to reap, a time to sow. We wail at grave parades of too soon deaths, too late births, then go home to mother our living, hewn from our bodies, Black diamonds glinting in earth. Come full moon, we cut their hair for new growth. When rain falls while sun shines, children plant their ears to dirt. Witness how bad the devil is, beating his wife. So that poem ends with a phrase that I heard growing up. Anytime the sun would be out while it was raining, my mama would say, "Oh, the devil's beating his wife." And I was like, "What are you talking about, lady?" And that was part of the language of my becoming. This next poem is a list poem. I was trying to think about in mountain places where coal camps happen, what are the sounds and sights and smells that a mountain witnesses? How might a mountain talk about this place? And this poem also ends with another proverb I grew up hearing. These hills miss no thing. Kettle coffee, bacon hearty, biscuit prayer, morning gone griefs are put off dreams, hanging like bleached sheets, shimmies, ghosting lines on a breeze. No iota of coal dust, sullying rust witten wind chimes for use can shake some angel jangles from 'em. Not long after sun stretches her arms wide, yawning gold breath between wooden wall slats, these hills witness whistling ways to work, lunch pails wailing 4/4 time every time a boot hits dirt. Witness mamas, kitchen babies slung on one-handed hips, lanyard aspidity bags round kids' necks. Witness kids whimper witless whines against rotten egg plumes in one-room schools. Funked up fetid necklaces, devil's dung damning colds to hell. Hard-headed witness, lard-handed witness, no, not even missing gardens, bewitched by witch grass, witch fawn, feathery heads, till season send seeds down hollow bottoms, certainly not a hard day's ache, callous testimony of callous work, bodies bent to pickaxe belly of endless earth, butts bowed to blackened suds, lie soap blisters, stars on curled fingers in aluminum tubs. Not one moment how labor crooks bodies, coffins, lungs, empties these same hills after their young, hear parents shuffle worries, trade them in for Jesus and shine. Sanctified mountain proverbs like one bird in the hand worth more than two in the bush. So that was another saying I grew up hearing, one bird in the hand worth more than two in the bush, meaning, you got to go with what you got. And so that was clanging in my ear in the back. I want to end with this last poem dedicated to my uncle, who is the eldest in my family, my Uncle Harold, who kept the tradition of storytelling. And this poem is a hustle. So you'll hear a repeated word at the end of each couplet. Hustle, hog killing time. On the first day of each year, Uncle Harold must be the first to open my front door. A man passing through early brings luck, the coal miners say. It's in the blood. At 80, he visits his sister's homes before the first flake of sun, but saves mine for last since my mama is the only one who cleans chitlins from a bucket of blood. When he gets to my house, I empty my mouth full of hungry questions about mountains, company stores, backyard strawberry patches bursting like blood. Between slurps and burps down in his intestinal soup, boy, there's some good eating. Show, put your foot in this. He feeds my curiosity. It's persistent, pumping blood. In my day, come November or December, we butcher the whole black hog, from the listeners to the trotters, me and men round the holler, catch even the blood. Daddy'd stun the pig with a 22 clean between the eyeballs. No need to squander good hide by fretting about the end. Jitters carry spoil to the meat through the blood. I see the vat of boiling water scalding off hair, hands scraping the tufts remaining, and newly white pigskin glistening like pearls, ready to spill guts urgent with blood. What could bring more closeness than cutting off back fat, stewing neck bones, rationing outside meat, feet, and hams for families to share like blood? We used everything except for the oink. What can I salvage from this heritage? History has wasted Black bodies, cataloged with no names, with no lines of blood. Is every Black living thing eventually drained? Will you ever inherit wholeness, or just stories richer than blood? So next up, we have the amazing Alafia Nicole Sessions. Alafia Nicole Sessions is a birth worker, soccer and dance mom, and herbalist who loves making poems, potions, and plant medicine. She is currently in search for the perfect dark chocolate ganache cake. Let me know how that goes, girl. Welcome, Alafia.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Ricardo, Carla, my cohort, everyone who's here. I was in such a terrible mood before this began, and I can't stop smiling. So thank you for the gift of your talent and presence. Let's go. The first poem I'm going to read has a word that I should explain, and it's mastitis in the title. Mastitis is an infection that a breastfeeding person can get, and that's all you need to know. Portrait of newly postpartum mother with mastitis. Currently, your currency is milk. You decant your opal past into the basin of her head. Maple syrup weeps from your skin, you, the crowned goddess of fenugreek. You'll know you need care when your breasts fist themselves militant, hard as green mangoes. Chalk pills threaten the channel of your throat, serve as armistice between your body and baby. You air grievances, purge clots the ruby round of extant hearts. Your womb a wound pulsing, wet like skinned pomelo. It's likely you'll leave your body, thank the fever for permission to fly, to be famine and flood all at once. A thirst that cannot be sated, a river that thunders and stains. Once you had a name, now you answer only to rest. The next poem I'm going to read is the title poem of my book, 9 Drops of Turpentine. I wrote this poem for my daughter, who you probably maybe have seen popping in and out. This is for Sparrow. 9 Drops of Turpentine. Dear daughter, if a time comes when there's no other way, if you find that the world has turned bitter as 9 mugwort, if you suspect that your blood will sour should you begin to produce drops of milk, if in the moment the pit of your turpentine stomach chokes the soft night of your throat, if you want to preserve the sweet valley of flesh in between your evergreen legs, if I'm not there to knit the bones of your hips back together with my teaspoon hands, if you're alone but don't want to be, like the final elm in a forest of sugar-felled lovers, if there is no friend to steady your bulging branches, to whisper you still, if you reach for me and find me empty or 9 days gone, save yourself. Life will come back through if it needs to. And I will read one more poem. This is the last poem in my book, which is forthcoming from University of Georgia Press in March 2027. This is a duplex, a form created by Jericho Brown, and it has an epigraph, which I have not gotten clearance for in my book yet because it's by the artist SZA. So if anybody knows SZA, please connect me. The epigraph says, I did it all for love. I did it all on no drugs. I did all of this sober. I did it all for us. This is Apex Predator after Jericho Brown by me. I am a wolf in mother's clothing, deep practiced in the spilling of blood. We practice how to spell the word blood. Children should know what they're made of. My den knows exactly what it's made of. Built from bones I loved but couldn't save. I called on God. Even he couldn't save the girl panting with fur in her teeth. A girl in pants with the world in her teeth feels like apex predator to a man. I prefer a large ungulate over a man. I can run apron-clad for 2 miles. I hunt men who tell girls to smile. I am a wolf in mother's clothing. Thanks, y'all. It is my distinct pleasure to announce and introduce Kiana Shaley. Kiana Shaley is the author of Entrance, forthcoming from Future Poem in 2027. Contrary to popular belief, she is not a hater. She is a critic, an intellectual, a great thinker who loves to hate.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you to everyone for being here. I'm going to read an excerpt from my book-length poem, Entrance, which, like Nicole said, is forthcoming from Future Poem. If I may, I would also like to ask a favor of those who are able to and feel comfortable doing so. When I envision this being read, it's not by me, the speaker, but by a disembodied voice in a dark and boundless space. So in the spirit, again, if you are willing to, I'm going to ask that you please take this time right now to close your eyes. And once your eyes are closed, you take 2 deep, long, grounding breaths. And on the exhale of your second breath, allow yourself to arrive in a room where there are no edges and there is no light. And so with that, we begin. The entrance is rearranging. Waking in the morning, same beginning. Mauve liquor on his summer breath. A woolen mauve tapestry is a distant memory. Abuelita sits in an orange room in the country. 20 cats and a carcass stench. To jump now would be to admit faith is with them. How often do we repeat the same actions expecting different outcomes? 59 beads bounce on burgundy carpet. The world you love is imprisoned by sentiment. Can everything I am be packed into a suitcase? Not legislation, but the very biology of the species in question. An arrested attempt to understand myself. The problem with rationalism is that perception cannot be subjected to the scientific method. What I see is what I'm not. Poet, daughter, sister, dirt. The body is a list when laid onto paper. With this certitude of being implicated in the game, of being caught in the game, of being, as it were, from the very beginning at stake in the game, what we say, do, the movements by which we continue, and exist in concession to forces out of our command. What will be has happened, except that he remembers less than you've forgotten. Blame is a zero-sum game. Ready? Begin. Memory palace of perfect likeness. To sit in a room and remember its fabric was to participate in the exhibit and become a tally. What do you remember of the nose we meant? And the way the labyrinth of our dreaming leads to resolution, the sculptured climate stands in for a white room. Hot manzanilla on her teak nightstand. Nailed to the corner to the left of the escaparate hung a black and white portrait of the ideal woman. Slightly snoring, taut white shorts over a rotund body, symbol of ignorance and naive cruelty. Beaver reserved for the eyes of God. Eve's daughters bear her resemblance. The disconnect between ritual and judgment is how we treat our beloved. Pinned flat to the bedsheet by a clammy sweat. You scream in your sleep was a matter of fact. Given to the quasi-perceptual confabulation. The future wants to fuck you with the ceiling light off. As the unofficial spokesperson for colored women, he asked for my opinion and left me hanging. I am suspicious of anything written, fabricated for consumption, media, I mean. With limited knowledge of the cultures that bit the structures they admired, he called their time there homage to a square. Found the word fetishize applied to his friends. This is the history of art in a sentence. On the 3rd floor of the MoMA, I want to tell you attention is the difference between contravention of past and transgression of present, but Jean-Luc Godard beats me to it. Separation is divine grace. Can we start again? The sun is returning to the Tropic of Cancer soon, heralding a spectacle of massive proportions. The diversion of funding to more modern attractions can be found in the sad man's midlife crisis. All your new thinking will be about loss. I'll start with 43, then work backward. Incredulity is how you play prophecy safe. My mother has yet to be canonized. The value of a peso is relative, elastic, subject to a verdict it has no say in when at the same table as Uncle Ben. That the rules are rigged is a placeholder for meaning. Was I Jello or am I gelatin? The calculated deflection that was labeling incest Mexican. Waterways of flowers, pink and in bloom. When one has lived a long time alone in their heart and in their mind, the unthinkable is often a class differential. Tepid cream on toasted bolillo. My mother will think I am receiving communion as he recovers his palms from prayer position. Where is courage without its pretense? As far as I'm concerned, we're not astonished enough. She is small enough to trip on the last step and be helped up. She will undust herself. Her fingers linger. That dog marks its territory as it sees fit, lifting its leg and enjoying the stench. Disgust is a feeling and then a subjunctive. Want is a construction we are all taking chances in. Traces of past actions mark the unclean. What was valued of youth, they stole from a Grecian urn. Or perhaps it was she was doomed to stay dirty, so strips herself daily, washing details and laundry. Blood is a slur on the seat of her skirt. Makes jokes about it to ease their discomfort. Makes certain the belt is long enough. Too tight together may be needed. I walk into the closet and turn off the light. You are welcome to open your eyes. Thank you so much for your time and energy. It is my pleasure to introduce Sanam Sheriff. It is like a sincere pleasure to introduce Sanam. Sanam Sheriff is the author of Hum, forthcoming from the University of Nebraska Press this October. They turn to poetry as the closest translation. Sanam is a longtime believer that ball is life. With that, Sanam.
Thank you, Kiana, and thank you for that reading. I'm still coming back to being here. Okay, deep breath. Thank you, everybody, for being in this room. It has been my true delight to bask in the glow of these poets and under the careful guidance of Carla Bruce and the stewardship of Ricardo. So I begin with gratitude. I have spent most of my life, or all of my life, I should say, outside the lines of prescribed gender. But I grew up in India in a Muslim family with a father who didn't have the tools to allow for that expansiveness. And so it's only after leaving home and moving to a new country that I was able to step into some of these freedoms. And that's been weird, you know, to come into that like affirming truth in a place so foreign and far from who and where I come from. And I was lucky enough to have top surgery 9 months ago. And as I step more and more into this embodied version of transness, I find it really insulting that the people in power, both back home in India and here in the US, have made transness into a political talking point and an argument and a debate, and taking it so far from the beautiful inward meandering that it really is. And so I turn to poetry as a place that can hold the softness of that, and that doesn't try to replicate something. It says, this is somewhat what it's like. And I think that attempt rather than the arrival is a trans praxis. And so I'm going to share one poem with you this evening from my forthcoming collection, Hum, which comes out this October. And I'm a poet of the page and the stage. And so what I read today will be a little different than what it is when you read it in the book. And I'll start, I like to use rhyme as an entryway. And so we'll start there before we really land onto what's on the page. And do I have anything else to say? I think that's it. Thank you so much for your openness to listening. I might close my eyes, so if that helps you listen, you're welcome to do that. It's called Transfiguration. I can be a boy in this body with my boots in America, but I'm a woman when my woman's holding my hand. I'm fathered by my father's fallacy, father whose wounds father me, though time has made a figment of that memory. I'm a child when waiting for my woman to come back to me. If you come back with me to that childhood, stained until it's spent, you'll find that the woman who's leaving mothers me never really left. As a boy in a body in America, the motherland is a ruse to me. When my mother calls, I turn the camera off so the image can imagine into who I used to be. Now I'm bilingual in the binary, binders worth of bounding past the boundary. I floundered half my flesh until the whole of God surrounded me to come to know my spirit has encountered me. So I have been made anew, like the first hour of sun, after days of rain unwound in me. I have kissed the face of the life that took from me the only life I knew. Made anew, I have let love render me surrender, naked as a speck of dust in a beam of light, hanging in an open fist. I have kissed the fist open. I have effaced the face of every shame that would not say my truer name. Look, I was given a cage I have come to see as a gift, for it is a cage I can see. Just yesterday, my love bent 2 bars into a bouquet of flowers on a day I did not believe in flowers. I am taking my body beyond its shape. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. I have the true, honest pleasure of welcoming our next poet, Avia Tadmor. Avia Tadmor is the author of Song in Tammuz, forthcoming from Tupelo Press this October. Born in Jerusalem, she lives with her family in New York, where she teaches writing, loves walking anywhere, and practices paying attention. Please welcome Avia.
I don't know how I'm going to read after you, Sanam. Ooh, it is an amazing honor to read after you and to be here tonight. And thank you, Carla and Ricardo and our cohort and our guest speakers. We've been spending so much time talking about publicity and like practical brain on and strategies, but just spending an evening immersed in each other's work is such a joy and a pleasure. I will read 2 poems tonight. And I just found out a little bit more information about the process of the artist who designed the work that will be on the cover of my forthcoming debut, Song in Tammuz, which is coming out from Tupelo Press this October. And this artist's process is using discarded materials, book covers, candy wrappers, and cardboard to assemble idiosyncratic compositions. I was not part of the design of the cover, but I was so deeply moved to discover that this is her process because combining the old and the new feels in such striking conversation with my own process, writing the poems in the book and the project that I see for writing Song in Tammuz. And so I'll read 2 poems that I think speak to that way of how the present is always weighted in a way by the past. The first poem is Lemons from Levant. Aleph. If I carry my father with me, it is in my name, and the scent of cypress in my hair, thick as sheep's wool against the shearer's blade. It is in the 2 veins that run down my forearms, blue asps, rivers, Prat and Chidekel. They empty into whatever I'm writing, even now. Because, Lord, you have kept the seasons turning, made the salmon float back toward the Gulf, upturned but gleaming like pink confetti. And because, as I write this, a last good lemon hangs from its tree. Say you have made it so, Lord, that you meant it. Say there are riches in ruin. Say who lied to you. Bet. Once I knelt for a New York man, and he grabbed my hair like a bridle, his knuckles a colosseum of bone. He grunted some other name, mistaking me for relief from the cold, for a home one builds for one season. And because I was lost in this new alphabet, I scoured the letters as if they were the last telegraph to be sent before a city surrenders. The soldiers frozen in various positions, each twisted on his own sword. But I could not carve my own name because in English there is no letter for God, and because in this country some forms live longer with no sound. Gimel. What is it to have a Semitic god attached to the end of your name, like the tail of a mare, whipping with protest at every step she takes through the blonde grass? You will not ask what it means to be here. You only know you have not come this far to wear the torn shoes of the dead and stand in the rain in a thin wool coat, squinting at house numbers. And that you, like the mare, will kneel forward some day in tall grass, or like Ruth in the yellow fields of Judah, like that, yes, you will kneel for a stranger, you will kneel to be known. And the second poem I will read, second and last poem I will read, also in the spirit of a recognition that our present is weighted by the past, but from a linguistic angle. I grew up speaking Hebrew and a little bit of Arabic, and operating and speaking and loving and writing in English is a way to consider what we bring from our past languages, past selves into the present, and the languages we operate in. It has a bleeding title, so I'll start. In the tongue I was born to, the word for husband means owner, for wife means woman, and woman, man housed with God, which is to say, I hear him some mornings, stirring among the leaves in the garden, restless as every animal gone too long unsatisfied, which is to say, we can't always localize anguish, but I know the smell of semen, how it wafts from the carob tree, pods packed with brown pulp and seeds. I know what he tells me. Chemists would sell the ripe fruit to singers so their voices would be soothed, by which he meant some of me could learn to like it. Some of me is thinking of war women, how they press vinegar rags into wounds to survive them. Some of me says survival is seeing only the peak of our wake, him strangely angled and high-pitched, me in my sudden hunger, the old glass factory swarming with gulls, one of us quick, the other one quicker, both of us stunned as all dying things by desire fading out unevenly, which is to ask, how holy is holy? How can I be a man housed with God when this union, this tongue, this poem even has failed me? What good are the gulls, is the man, are the words, are the singers, their gullets, this morning unhousing in me? Thank you very much. And it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce a fellow mom, Marjorie Tesser. Okay. Marjorie Tesser is the editor of Mom Egg Review, literary journal. Her debut poetry collection, Unquiet, is forthcoming from Cornerstone Press in 2027.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for coming and listening to my wonderful colleagues read their beautiful work, and spending time in their worlds has been such a privilege. I'm full of gratitude to them and to poets and writers, to Ricardo and Carla and our guest speakers. And this has just been a tremendous experience, and I'm so happy to be here. So my debut poetry book is called Unquiet. It's coming from Cornerstone Press in 2027. I wrote this book in the aftermath of my having nursed my mother through her final illness, which made me very conscious of time. And so there are a lot of poems that are personal in there that are about me and about her life, as a girl, as a woman, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a daughter in an imperfect world. And they say, of course, that the personal is political, but also the political is personal. So I think that the poem which I'm going to read, which is in 3 parts, speaks to that. And it's the poem from which I got the title, but it's buried in the poem. It's not the title of it. It's called This Year While It Still Breathes. 1. The Visit. In the dark of each night, at 3:57 exactly, 9 black birds fly in. One perches above each eye, one at my heart, one at my gut, 2 at my legs, one at my head, one at my sex. The 9th does as it sees fit. At 3:58, they begin to peck. At first, it's like a nudge or a knock or the tug of a ribbon around a neck. I toss, I turn, I try to throw them off, but they strike harder, drawing specks of blood. At 5, they rise and circle thrice before flying off. 2. The wait. A warm evening, late fall, and across the fading fields, the children call like birds. Some birds, deciding when to migrate, reply in kind, shrieking like children. I want to remember this world while it still breathes. I have hosted this year in my body, a tumor or stone. I have worn it turtleneck tight at my throat, worn it a weighty, too warm coat against cold, against fire, against smoke, against my will. I drag it as spare part, the many-colored coat of our historic home. I have borne it dense like the fodder of quick trigger cops and mad bombers, dead weight, yet a white rhino lighter. Felt its hot breath on my neck, polar ice caps drip between my shoulders, its tectonic plates shift at the flat of my back. I used to lie awake unquiet for my family. Now the scope has grown, a preliminary mourning. The evening grows colder. Birds circle and home for the night. The sunset flames the river as of old, backlit, golden, as if it's just beautiful and not a metaphor for something dire. 3. While it still breathes. How to bear it. This year does not let up. Apocalyptica, disaster. And yet I could name all day the beauty we're blessed. Morning strong coffee, the sun warm on my back, everywhere bright yellow. Forsythia, daffodils, goldfinch at the feeder. 2 crows dive. Calling and cawing, they drive a red-tailed hawk from their young. Compassionate action, I tell myself. If despair and fear are cloud cover, be airstream. Heft or set it down. Let down off my back, let it slide down to earth to rest. The better to free my arms to defend it, or lift it to cradle, or weave it a nest. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing to see all the reactions as all the poets read. I'm still just sitting with it all, and I'm sure everyone else is too. But I just want to extend some more gratitude to everyone for being here, for taking the time to listen in, to all of you amazing poets for sharing your time. It's been really, really incredible to learn from you all and see you learn from each other, and I trust that it will continue. And everyone listening in, I really, really strongly encourage you to support all of these poets when their books come out. Support them now by pre-ordering, which is very, very important. But it's life-giving, as we've all evidenced in this room. So I really appreciate all of the support and the love here. Thank you all.
Thank you. Unbelievable.
Oh, thanks for that, Sharon. Okay,
Amazing
so
work.
oh, thanks
Trust
for
me,
that.
it's all of it
Yeah.
amazing. I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, so I just wanted to, and thank you, Carla, for those closing remarks. So I just, again, another round of applause for their poets. I also just wanted to extend the gratitude, of course, to everyone here for joining us this evening, and also just wanted to send a specific shout outs to the guest presenters who joined us for the last couple of months: Adam Vitkovich, Cynthia Oka, Han Vander Hart, Emily Feiertag, Elaine Cho, and Nicole Counts. So to wind down the event, as you're all leaving, sort of closing love for the poets and their readings, I just wanted to share three more items to keep in mind as you return to your evenings or your afternoons. So first, if you've enjoyed tonight's event and the chat log tells me you did, again, please support these authors and their books using the links in the chat to visit them at their website, their Substacks, to make orders and pre-orders. A couple of these books are forthcoming in the fall. So maybe, you know, gifts or just any for the poet lovers in your life. And of course, to follow them and support their upcoming events. And I hope all of your to be read piles are going to get just a little bit larger after this evening. Second, Get the Word Out is a publicity incubator for poets and fiction writers. So we will actually begin accepting applications for the next cohort of fellows, which is going to be for writers with forthcoming books of fiction beginning June 1st, so just next week. If you opted to sign up for Poets and Writers Weekly Update newsletter, you're already ahead of the curve and you'll be reminded as the date approaches. We'll also drop a link to the program page in the chat. And I encourage you to, again, take a look, share it widely with the writers in your life. And then lastly, if you're leaving inspired and sort of ready to write, I know I am, I just want to encourage folks to check out our website, pw.org, for resources, including databases for upcoming grants, funding for readings and workshops in New York, and our online professional development and craft classes. And I've also shared a link to that in the chat. Again, just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, to all the wonderful poets for sharing their work. And have a lovely evening. Take care. Bye-bye.